Okay, great. All right, so I think we're all here. And if you just joined, Lori Riggs is not able to make it this evening, so she sent me a quick text. All right. So I thought we'd start by just talking over the areas of opportunity, or if you can call them that, or they can be called, improvement suggestions, or our plan, kind of some things we're focusing on for our plan. There's been some feedback. So under the police department functions, some people had gone into the document, actually only Susanna at this point, but Kelly may, I'm not sure if Kelly commented on any of these also or anybody else, but there's bullets, and I think it would be helpful if we go through them, because one of the pieces of Susanna's feedback back to me was that we have this list, we all participated in, and each of us went around and gave our ideas, suggestions. But she was saying to me in an email, in her opinion, I don't know that that we have to almost come up with a prescription type of thing. So some of it was more just like placeholders for our own thoughts. So I think we should go through them, see what we think we definitely need to keep. And if something was more like a reminder to us, to include it in some other part of the plan. So under police department functions, it says continue the process of updating key documents and policies. That seems standard. I know Chief Bush was going through the use of force policy and updating that. We will probably have to identify several others. Later in the document, it does identify the policies that we talked about with Chief Bush and that he provided copies of. So we can attach those, but we may need to go back to this bullet and just be sure that we, we noted it. So I think ongoing, that process is happening anyway, actually, with Chief Bush, because I know in partial retirement that he's working on, I think he had noted almost, hundreds of documents that can be updated, but probably just a most important subset. The second bullet says include more than initial demographic information, though we do have low numbers of minorities residing in our village. So Susanna went back into our plan and she included some graphics from the Ballston Spa development plan. She also, there was census data, Larry, in the back, the 2019. So she went in and identified, our demographics. So for instance, in the census data, it says that we're 91.1% made up of white residents, 1.7 Black residents, 4.7 Hispanic. We had like a diversity percentage of like 24.3% or 24.3. I guess that might be like, I don't know exactly how that's broken down.
It's called a diversity index. There's a note to explain it underneath, and it talks about how many people are likely to live next door to somebody of a different race.
Okay.
For what it's worth.
So thank you for putting that in, because I think that helps so much to just show the general public like what the village demographic is, because it just puts it there in very clear language, and the images, the graphics are good as well from the development plan. So that was really helpful.
So just one point of clarity on that. It's not census data from 2019. I think they had 2012 and then they extrapolated to 2019.
Okay.
I didn't know, Larry, if you had actual numbers from 2019 or if that's available somewhere else, or if this is the latest and greatest.
I don't know.
Okay. It's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think if we use that data and then know, not only the development plan, but I guess the page number where we got it from, potentially from the development plan,
Sure.
That might be good. And then if you feel like we need further digging, if anyone does, we could always reach out to the Saratoga County Prosperity Partners and see if, because they documented that in that booklet. So they might be able to explain it more, but I'm going to leave that up to the group. So I would remove that second bullet because I think we covered it already with our update to the plan. So the third bullet under police department functions, and this is one that we've had some discussion about, is that we felt we should include some more language about basically indicating, regardless of race, creed, or gender, to recommend more specific language to be included in the police department mission or vision statement, Susanna had updated to say that the police department is committed to protecting all citizens of the village of Ballston Spa, regardless of race, color, gender, sexual orientation, religion, disability, or age. I like that. I think we've talked about this a bit, especially at the last meeting. Ray sent out an email today, which I appreciate. And I had never seen examples like those where there was like 20 different things indicated for identifying people. So I think it was good to see it because I know it exists in different places. I guess, so what I'd like to ask the group is, are we all okay with the way that's worded, regardless of race, color, gender, sexual orientation, religion, disability, or age, to leave those qualifiers and leave it at that? Is that acceptable? And does anyone object? Okay. I mean, specifically for, go ahead. Go ahead, Ray.
Like I say, in my email, I have voiced the opinion that and I always will feel as though qualifiers aren't needed. And that's, again, that's just my opinion. I don't think that stating specific groups, regardless of what they are, adds to the statement at all. Equity for all, to me, means just that. I don't need somebody to say all, including, all encompasses all. My opinion, just, I guess, that's what I was brought up with, and, after all these years, that's what I've lived by. So again, just my opinion.
Okay.
One of,
Respectfully, we can include after those qualifiers, equity for all, like that's essentially what we're saying, to encompass what you're saying, right? I think I kind of wish Lori was here tonight because she deals with this, day in and day out. I would say in today's day and age and today's generation. And I think with some of the things that are being put forth by this particular job that we have in front of us, and because some of these issues prompted some of this work, I think it's important to include some specifics for sure. And if we didn't, I think that it wouldn't be.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Okay.
one of the problems that we run into and that you're going to see is that when you include this, and this, and you exclude others, that leaves the door wide open for problems down the road. It leaves the door wide open. Well, we recognize the Hispanic, the Black, the gay, whatever, and we're stating that in our policy, but we left out, the guy that barks at the moon every Tuesday at 4:00. I think that we're opening ourselves up to litigation or some type of civil penalties in the future if in fact we were to have to use physical force on somebody that's not included in the verbiage. That's why I tried to keep it as simple and as all inclusive as possible.
Okay. Larry, for the village, how is that handled like in the village office? Like, do you know of any paperwork or rules or decisions that have been made about this language in other areas of the village besides the police department?
No, I don't, Lori. If I thought about it a while, I might be able to come up with some place to look. But I'm wondering if there's not some parenthetical catchphrase we could add at the end indicating and other non-privileged groups, or however one wants to phrase that would then expand the definition to include groups that are not specifically listed. Would that be a possibility?
Well, I think also you have to remember the context of what we're trying to say here. This is a policy on the use of force. The New York State Penal Law under Article 35 clearly states who and who cannot use force. And police officers are obviously in there. Doctors are in there. captains of common carriers are in there. The general public is not in there. So it's a small group that we're talking about that is authorized by law to use physical force. And although we want to make sure that we're including everybody, but this policy is specific to police. It's not specific or general to village government, state government. It's a law under the New York State Penal Law, Article 35, the use of force.
I thought we were speaking more generally about
Yeah.
the mission of the police department as opposed to a specific policy.
That
Was-
was my understanding as well, or my recommendation certainly, to put it like right up front. You know, our mission as the Village of Ballston Spa is to treat all citizens fairly, et cetera, et cetera.
And then it wouldn't be in the specific use of force policy that the chief is talking about. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So
We
we're
would
talking
have to
about putting
specify
that
it.
into the mission statement and leaving the force policy the way it is.
Yes, I mean, that was a suggestion that.
That's a great
that-
idea, Susanna. That's perfect, and it would fit in there perfectly.
Okay, great.
Well, I think, Chief Bush, you mentioned that in the use of force policy, I think you used the word humankind, like of all humankind. I'm pretty sure.
Mm,
So that is really similar. I mean, I think that's fine, right? If that's, and I think Susanna was bringing this up. If you had a mission or a vision statement, which I don't even know if that exists currently.
We do
but-
have a mission statement, yes, and it's, Larry, I believe I sent that to you, didn't I?
I don't remember.
You got a lot on your mind, I get that, but
Okay,
bear with me for 1 second if you would.
yeah.
Yeah, if it's in something
thought
more
of it-
general, maybe we're not opening ourselves up to litigation. You know, if it's just a general statement, I just thought it would be helpful at the front of the report, just to hit this thing dead on and say, you know, we're a village, we're inclusive, and we care about all the different people here, even if you're only 0.2% of our population, but you're
Right.
still important and we're going to treat everybody equally. mean,
I
this is
actually think that's a
awesome.
great idea, Susanna, is putting that in the mission statement instead of incorporating that into policy after policy after policy after policy.
Yeah,
Remember,
absolutely.
this is the use of force policy, which is the most important one to get out as soon as possible under the governor's directives. Every policy is going to have something in there about, respecting all the value of all human life. But the mission statement stands alone and by itself, and which will be in front of all the policies and procedures.
My understanding also was that we were talking about the use of force policy. That's why I've sort of been pushing back on it.
So if
Great.
maybe we could agree to leave the use of force policy the way it is, specific to that. And then for the police department mission or vision statement, what if the verbiage, it could include the things that Susanna identified, or it could say protecting all citizens of the Village of Ballston Spa regardless of personal orientation. I don't know. Susanna, maybe tell me, Susanna, if that just does not do it for you, like if-
I mean, that maybe it's just me, but to me that talks of sexual orientation. I don't think of all the other groups, and I just feel like I'm not sure that race is considered an orientation, or at least not in my head.
okay.
But to me, it's really important that we hit it head on and that we say and we put it down in writing that this is a very important issue to us and we care about all people who live in the village, regardless of, all these different things.
I think Corey Riggs said something very similar at our last meeting.
Mhm.
And no, I don't have a copy of the mission statement in my folder here.
And I apologize. I'm obviously not in my office tonight, in my bedroom. So,
Too much information.
well,
So
that's where my desk is. So I don't have access to all my paperwork and my records, but the mission statement is a 1-paragraph statement stating what our purpose is in the Village of Ballston Spa as the police department. And I think that incorporating the extra verbiage that Susanna's talking about, and Lori's talking about, and Kelly would be perfect in that application.
okay.
Great.
So I'll update this bullet to embrace what Susanna is identifying as the mission and vision statement with the verbiage that she put in there. And we're all clear that the use of force policy is going to be worded like it originally was shown to us. So is that, we're good to move on and leave
I
it?
would appreciate that, yeah, because I'm about 6 months behind on getting that implemented in the department. With the changes that the state has come out with. And I will upload tomorrow the mission statement so you can all take a look at it the way it stands now.
Okay,
Great.
Great.
I think that's good. Laura, the next bullet point was recommending to add CAD system for tracking purposes. That was one of Lori Briggs's recommendations. I think that would stay as is.
Yeah, one thing to remember about the CAD system is that it's a county controlled item, and that we're going to come on board with CADs when the county says we can.
Okay. So, you know what, I'll put something in parentheses like county approved or something, when county approves.
Yeah, per county approval or whatever.
Yeah, we're approved. They just haven't rolled it out to the agencies yet.
When they roll it out or whatever, like I'll put some kind of wording about that so that that's when it can be expected. Okay, then so Joe may have to comment on this. So it's I think, Joe, this was your suggestion. Regular, yearly, or periodic soliciting of public input in annual elections. I wasn't 100% clear. I think you mean both, like that there should be a yearly opportunity to gather input, and then maybe, is that right? Or can you just elaborate on that, Joe, maybe?
I'm not sure we've still got him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was
Joe says
confused
some
about the
difficulty.
annual elections thing. I wasn't.
What's that, Kelly?
Oh, I was just saying, I wasn't, I really didn't understand the annual elections part of it.
Yeah, I didn't know if there were annual elections.
Yeah, I was confused.
So I do see Joe on, but
Yeah, I see him on there too.
I don't know if he's muted.
He doesn't have a microphone next to his name in my list, so I'm not sure what that means.
Okay.
Everybody else has a microphone, and if they're muted, it's got the red line through it. Joe doesn't have a picture of a microphone in the first place.
He may be able to hear us, but maybe not be able to, if he might be coming in through like his email or something, and maybe he can't respond.
Joe's using his phone. That's all he has available to him.
Okay.
That's why him and I have been teaming up on previous meetings.
Okay.
Although we just couldn't get together tonight.
Okay, so I can follow up with Joe about that particular piece of input. Okay, the next one is when hiring or recruiting, post the positions in a way that makes them known to the outside community, upholding the current inclusivity. So we talked about this at the last meeting. I think it was really mostly to get a commitment that when position where you're hiring, that you would post it, openly and solicit applications as needed. Is that where we left it? And I don't know, like, what is the best way to do that feels comfortable and that seems like moving forward on that a bit versus just word of mouth, perhaps.
As I recall, the issue with timing, and that is we don't have a whole lot of turnover in our full-time people, but we do in our part-time people. And when a part-time person leaves, then there's a shift or possibly more that are uncovered effective immediately. And Dave has to do something pretty quickly to get those shifts covered. I think that was the issue in terms of the advertising.
Okay.
Certainly no reason why we couldn't put it on the website and the Facebook page and stuff like that.
I think that's a great idea. Even when we don't have the positions open, we could put out there that, we do periodically hire part-time police officers, and that if you're interested in possibly working for the Village of Ballston Spa, put it on the village website and have them send in a resume and an application.
And maybe
So we have it on
continuously,
hand.
oops, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was gonna say maybe continuously, accepting applications or whatever, that kind of wording.
Yeah,
That's what we do on our, on the EMS website. We have it on there. We have our application actually on our webpage. So you can go in there at any time and it says, we're always looking for help, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
You can go in at any time, put applications in with us, and when we have the need, we refer to those.
that sounds like a good plan.
Okay,
Which is basically what we're doing now. We're just not advertising.
okay. So we'll update how that's worded to include from the minutes what was just talked about.
Mhm.
And then the next section is training officer development. So the first bullet was supporting police officers' mental health, including training on both handling others and care for themselves. Last meeting, we talked about the AWARE program, the grant funded program, mental health 101 workshop, supported by a local capital region grant. It's good. It would be good for officers and the community. So the first workshop is tomorrow, and then the next one is March 25th.
It was today, Lori.
Oh, was it today? I'm sorry,
Mhm.
got it. Tomorrow's the 10th. Okay, so
Yeah.
did you attend that today, Susanna?
I attended I could only stay for a few minutes at the beginning.
Okay.
But it seemed like it could be good. I mean, it was talking about in the workforce. So basically, how do you support your colleagues or your team with mental health? What do you do to make people feel comfortable or feel open and make sure they feel heard and support your team members, that kind of thing. That's as
Okay.
far as I got.
So I don't think their next one's till the 25th of March. So, go ahead, Chief Bush. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I had a meeting with the undersheriff on last Wednesday, specifically regarding the training.
Mhm.
And obviously all the police agencies in the area and probably in the state are going to be focusing on diversity training, de-escalation training, things like that. And the county is coming up with, the county sheriff's department is coming up with a training syllabus to incorporate all those things, and they're going to allow my department to train with them.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah.
Great.
Okay, that's excellent. So maybe what I'll do for that bullet is I'll update it to note that that you are going to be participating with the county sheriff's department in mental health training and de-escalation training or ongoing training in those areas. I think I will, on behalf of this committee, public safety committee. I think that I will come up with some kind of social media post for the March meeting, just saying that this committee is, encouraging awareness of this particular workshop because it is open to the community. It's open up to anybody and it could be beneficial to anyone in the county. So when we get closer, I think it would be healthy to support it from this group, but then we'll note in regard to training and officer development that that's more community-based and that you all will be following the county sheriff's department for continuing ed.
Are there any constraints regarding training? I know that budget was a concern of yours initially. Do you think that what the county's coming up with will be adequate and that will be covered under budget, or are there other things that you think would be helpful?
Well, I think it'd be beneficial due to the fact that we work hand in hand with the county. If one of our guys needs backup, we back them up, or they back us up and we back them up. If we're training under the same curriculum,
Mhm.
we're going to all be doing the same thing. We're all going to be thinking the same thing and reacting the same way. So I think it's very beneficial to work with the other agencies as far as that's concerned. As far as the budget's concerned, I mean, we have to train, and we'll just have to. If we have to trim someplace else, we trim someplace else. But training is obviously important.
Right.
As a general rule, my experience in this brief and limited time is that there's a lot of stuff that's available locally and online. And if it's local and or online, funding is not an obstacle. The things that are obstacles are when somebody wants to go to Syracuse for 3 nights in a fancy hotel and eat dinner out every night and stuff like that. That's the sort of thing I would have difficulty with.
So you're going to deny my request?
Yeah, but as long as we're doing, I mean, sending somebody to Saratoga, Albany, Clifton Park for a daytime meeting, those typically are not prohibitively expensive at all. We have sufficient money in the budget to support that kind of activity whenever it's requested.
Great.
The next bullet after the mental health one and just training in general was Susanna had posted ongoing de-escalation training, which will actually just tie in with what Chief Bush just mentioned regarding the sheriff's department. So that covers that. So we can kind of simplify those. The next one was, I believe it was one of Joe's suggestions also, potentially to survey the police to understand what we as a community can do for them and how to help them and identify meaningful and ongoing training needs. So this would be something that we would have to write up if we wanted to find out specific information about how we could help the police department or the police officers. And I think I can also take this offline with Joe, or if anyone has thoughts. And just, I don't know that it's something that we have to come up with before the end of, before April, but it could be if it's simple. What are thoughts on this, I guess, in general?
I guess I'm not sure what kind of activity specifically we're thinking about.
I think, Lori, one of the frustrations that I that I believe that most police officers have is the when something goes bad, there's a perception that all police are bad, and this is difficult. You need to you personally, the public, somebody who's relying on the police to come help them in a horrible situation, a break-in of their house, they're getting assaulted by whoever or whatever. You want that police officer to be able to respond in a way that's going to stop that action right away. You need to stop it right away. And that's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. Police officers have to be ready to be the Dr. Jekyll. They also have to be the Dr. Hyde, the yin, the yang. And that's what's so frustrating is that people have this perception that we can just change on a dime. And we do. But when we do, we're scrutinized. And so the frustration comes out of the fact that, do you want us to stop the aggressive assault? Or do you want us to talk to somebody while they're doing that? Do you want us to, it's very difficult. There are times when compassion and understanding and speaking to somebody is the right course of action. There's also the right course of action when somebody needs to be grabbed violently and make them stop what they're doing. So we're constantly going between one level of mentality to another. And that's what's so frustrating. I don't want my officers stopping and thinking, should I react? Should I react? Should I react because of what's going on in the nation, in the view of police? I want them to act to stop the threat, act to stop what's going on. That's what's frustrating to police officers.
I thought we were talking about what we can do to help the police force or what the community can do. Did I miss?
Yeah, I guess that goes into thinking that, not every police call is a controlled environment. It's a very difficult environment. And I think what I'm spouting off about is just having the people understand that it's not always a parade detail and a bike rodeo.
Step in.
Sorry.
I mean, I think that what you're saying is
You're going to the blind.
You should have joined your group.
No, they're going to the blind.
Shut up.
Oh, I think what maybe what Joe was intending is like, what can we do to support the officers? Like, and maybe what I'm hearing is like, they need to be seen as human beings and also as officers, right? Like they have to do their job. What can we do? Because it's so stressful at times. It's really, I think, a supportive bullet, like he's saying, that they're under pressure, they're under fire. What can we do to help them? Like maybe that training would be something about stress management or stress reduction or something kind or helpful, or even a community day for police, you know, something positive like that.
That's the word.
You know, I think that's what Joe intended, is some kind of positive
I'm talking to him right now.
support. But I can also ask him too. I know he can't comment on that right now. So why don't I circle back with him on a couple of these things and see if I can get him to give us more input. And if not, he can do it on the next time we meet.
One question about that. I guess, Chief, how would you feel about a survey to the officers? Is that something you feel like you already do, or you have an open forum, or are you concerned about doing it for any reason? Before we
I'm
like
getting
add
Joe
it.
on the line right now so he can hear what we're talking about.
Oh,
Joe, I'm going to put you up here so you can hear.
I can hear everything, I can see everything, I just got it. But I can't talk, I'm muted here.
Okay. Is there anything you want to say to the group, Joe, about what Lori was talking about?
I just got on, so,
Us.
I don't want to inconvenience you guys. You know, I can get that together.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, thanks, Joe. Bye. All right, Joe's having a little difficulty. A survey from the cops, Susanna?
asking the police officers their opinions about any recommendations they have for the department. I think that's what we were getting at. How can we support them?
Yeah.
How can the
Okay.
community
How can we
support?
support them in their work? Yes.
Well, I think that's a good idea. You know, police officers just want, you know, they're going to want stuff that we can't afford if you ask them. So, but it couldn't hurt. I mean,
You never
I
know.
mean-
Maybe that's a good idea. Cheap.
It could simply be that question, what would make you feel supported by the community? Like, or what could the community do to help you feel supported? And then, you know, if they can comment in a written way, whatever they want. And then maybe there'll be some commonalities, like where a few of them say the same thing, you know, unless it's like some kind of crazy, super expensive thing. Even if we were able to do one or two of them, it might be really meaningful to them, you know.
Maybe if it were phrased, what could this committee do, or what could this committee recommend that would support you in your job?
Yeah,
That might be feedback directly to us,
right.
and might also ask a different question than how many new toys and gizmos would you like to have bought for you?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that might be good. So we can think about that a little bit, everyone, and then Joe can also comment on his original intention for it, and then we'll circle back to that. There was a bullet about developing a policy on culture and off-duty activities expected of the force. You know what, Chief Bush, I know that you set a culture of that with those expectations, like positive expectations for your officers. But I don't remember if there's something in like the mission statement or someplace where it's actually written.
not as of yet, but that is a policy under the administration section of the policies and procedures. Conduct off duty, conduct on duty. You know, we don't want officers hanging around with gamblers and felons. I mean, that just doesn't show good light on the police department. And you know, it happens, and it's good to have a policy, what is expected of them off duty. I'm sure everybody remembers the sheriff's deputy who was running drugs up and down the Northway. I mean, we need to spell things out of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable.
Okay,
Is that
But there is a policy that is forthcoming on that.
is that
okay.
policies and procedures handbook in place right now?
I'm sorry, Larry?
Is that handbook in place currently, or is it in?
That's one of the several that I'm tasked to complete here.
Okay. So maybe our recommendation comes along the lines of recommending that be in the policies and procedures handbook and that it be brought online as soon as possible or something.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Then the next one is develop a regular evaluation process for all police officers. And I don't know if that exists in paper form right now.
It isn't, but I have it,
Okay,
if that makes sense. I received the proficiency and conduct evaluations from both the state police and the Central County Sheriff's Department. And using both of those formats, I formulated one for the Ballston Spa Police Department.
okay. Okay,
Is
so,
that already in use?
It will be in use very, very, very shortly.
And you don't think that is a contractual issue?
It cannot be.
Okay. Good.
okay. Okay, so my sense is that we leave these in here, they're in process. And we're making them as recommendations, but they're in process. So this seems all like it's in line.
Actually, it's pretty good for the committee saying that this is things we need to get done, and
Yeah.
actually pretty shortly they will be done.
Yeah, that's great. There's one last little bit additionally, it's under additionally, make the current committee. So this is just, I'll say this ahead, in our main book from the governor's office, one of the little tiny fine print things is and this says it here, make the current committee a standing committee on an ongoing basis to serve as an advisory council and a community advocacy group meeting annually or semi-annually. So that, I didn't know this going into this, and I think it's healthy and good. I don't know that anyone else on the committee was aware of this. I think maybe they thought it was a 4 to 5 month commitment with a document coming out in April. I think it's nice and would be good. And I just wondered if this may be the first time that everyone is hearing this or reading this. So the decision, I guess, would be about when we meet, like annually, semi-annually. Annually is once a year, obviously. And then it's really more like maybe to check in on all the work that we did, see how things are going, maybe come up with a couple of new ideas for community connections each year. I don't know. What are people's thoughts about this?
You know what? I think you guys have done a fantastic job, and I didn't know what to expect, but I'm very pleased. And things do pop up. Things pop up with maybe an officer getting in trouble, or we have a major case that doesn't necessarily shine a good light on the police department. I think it's a good idea to have this type of a committee so we could figure out where to go, how to approach whatever difficulty we're going through at the time.
Yeah. I mean, the one nice thing about it is we've talked about this before, but we're a diverse group, all different, ages and stages and parts of the neighborhood and backgrounds. And we all connect to different parts of the community. So I think that's good because like you just said, if you do run into things good and bad, we can get the pulse of how people are feeling and how to help. And, I think that might be a good thing. Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, when I sent out the original email to this group on October 26th, it said starting in April, the committee will likely meet every few months or as needed
Okay.
to review new policies developed by the police chief and to review any community issues that might arise. So that was based on reading that little section in the state book. So I do think people
good.
at least had a hint that it might be a longer commitment. But certainly anybody that wanted to resign could resign at any time and be replaced. So
Okay.
nobody's stuck for life or anything.
No, my bad. I appreciate it. I mean, for some reason, I didn't really catch that initially, maybe because I was just taking it all in. So I think it's good. Thank you. Okay.
I think a semi-annual would be much warranted. I don't think annually is is anywhere near enough.
Okay,
Things change on a dime,
Yeah.
as we all know. So I think at least semi-annually would be,
okay.
As
I mean-
needed, but at least semi-annually.
Yeah, or quarterly. I mean, it could be semi-annually, and then if something comes up, we gather together.
Right.
Um, and people can, comment on this going forward if you think really, if you feel strongly about the timeline more than semi-annually and as needed. Okay. Is there anything else that anyone would like to mention regarding these lists or these bulleted points? Or anything that you've read in the draft of the plan so far? I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read through it in its basic form. It's going to get really filled out once the survey information comes in, but is there anything, I mean, you have the opportunity to go in and edit if you can get into the document. If you can't, you can send me an email. And if you're not prepared to discuss it yet because you need more time with it, that's fine too.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the upfront part, sort of the police department makeup. I pulled that from the old minutes. So
Yep.
Chief Bush, please take a look whenever you get a chance. It may not be 100% accurate, just based on what we've talked about here. By all means, edit away.
Yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you so much. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the survey, just basics and specifically paper survey. So Joe, I'm sorry again, I know you can hear me, but you can't speak, but I did send a couple emails out and I'm not sure if they got to you, but I did print paper surveys. But what I realized really quickly was that I can see a little preliminary survey data like the respondent groups. So far we had, just look here, I believe it was like 90 responses as of today. 76 were residents, 14 were non-residents. I believe the non-residents we pulled out because obviously they weren't supposed to fill a survey out. It gives them the demographics as far as age. So over 60 years old is 16% of the survey responders. The 50 to 59 age group is 31% so far of our responders. 40 to 49 years old is 26%. The 30 to 39-year-old group is like 16 to 17%. And the 18 to 20-year-old group is 1%. And younger than that, no, I'm sorry, 21 to 29-year-olds, 8%. And younger than 21 was 1%. So our 30 to 39-year-old group is strongly participating as our over 60 group. So my question to everyone is this: if I look at, I did have 100 paper surveys printed. We talked about Doubleday Woods and Mohegan Hills. And I'm not against that, but I also think that we are getting responses from the over 60 group. And in talking to Dave Wolmer, we can do it. He can set up a link where someone will sit at a keyboard and just key in. Like, so originally Joe had said he might be able to even get up to 70, right? Now that's good. But the one thing I thought of is we're actively then pursuing this age group, paper surveys. Like we can offer it as a backup if someone can't access something electronically. But so then we're also promoting to that particular age group. Then someone has to sit at a keyboard and enter in all of the data, and there are some paragraphs, and people are commenting, I'm assuming. So what do people think? Do we need to go that extra step with like deliberately handing out paper surveys, or should we just offer it if someone requests it? And are you okay with this breakup of population as it is now?
Sounded almost like a perfect bell curve.
well, my only concern is, I've been working the vaccine clinic for the past month and a half since we've been getting shots in the area, and listening to all the seniors on my telephone every day when I'm at work. stating, I cannot get into the system to get a shot. I do not have a computer. I don't have a cell phone. Yeah.
Mhm.
Standing here in my kitchen on my wall phone, talking to you right now. The senior population, at best, 50% have computers or access to computer lines. And I think we would be remiss in not soliciting that because they don't have the access otherwise. That's just based on what I'm seeing with the vaccines, which I think is a pretty good, a pretty good sampling of what the senior population can and cannot do online. Just a thought.
I also think that 60 up is a pretty broad age range compared to your other 10-year intervals. Because you got 60s and 70s and 80s and maybe even some 90s out there
Okay,
lumped into that one category.
okay. So, is there any concern if, like, say Joe hands out the surveys at Doubleday and we get 75 of them back representing that age population? Is that balanced and fair? Like, because we're not actively kind of focusing on, I understand the technology, issue, but, and I see what you're saying because of the high percentage above 60 up to like maybe 90 to 100, right? Their age could be, you're looking at a 40-year age span. So is everyone good with this? Like handing out 75 of them to that particular demographic?
Sure, I agree with that,
Okay,
but but there are people that maybe 60 or under it may not be as important to them to look on the police website, the Ballston Spa Police website or whatever, to see what they're doing to make life better.
right.
So, I mean, that's the only thing about the target of, we want a representation of everybody. So all these people that responded are, Facebook friends or whatever of, the police department on Facebook, and maybe obviously not so much the senior citizens that don't have access to a computer.
So it went out to, Ray had gotten it to EMS, the fire department, the police department has it up, the village. I did not send it to the library because initially I think when we spoke about the library, and there was some sense that the library reach is like way far out of the village. In some cases it's in the village, but I guess I could prove any of it, but so what would be the remedy, I guess? So does anyone have any suggestions?
Lori, two
Yeah.
points. One, the seniors, they really do want to be heard. They want to be included. They want to be part of it. And secondly, speaking with Under Sheriff Castle last Wednesday, they only had like 37 to 45 people respond to their survey. So we're doing really well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I guess what I don't know about the Doubleday Woods population, just because I'm ignorant, is that primarily a local group? Because obviously their current residence is Ballston Spa, but is that group people who were in Ballston Spa before they moved to Doubleday, or is that people who might have been from all over the area?
Yes.
Yes.
To all of the above.
The Doubleday Woods has a equal amount of people that came from the area and an equal amount of people that came from outside the area.
Okay. So
Okay.
we would expand our reach to an age group, but we might also expand it to a group that didn't experience the Ballston Spa police force in a prior stage of life.
Mm.
It seems like there's no perfect solution.
We have a really good relationship with the people there at Doubleday Woods. I mean, we're there all the time. The folks, they lock their keys inside their apartments, and we have access to their apartments. So We're there probably 7, 8, 10 times a week, letting people inside their apartment. We go on every emergency medical call there that to assist with Ray and his crew. So, they know us. We've been there. Some of my guys have shoveled snow off the cars for them, just so they can move around.
So maybe even if they're not originally from the village proper, they have had enough exposure to the village police since they've been here that they would have informed opinions.
I would think so.
Okay.
Once those folks get in there, they don't leave. I didn't mean it to sound like that. They like it there. It's a great community. They do, they treat them good. They have a nice apartment. They have all kinds of services available to them. So
Maybe we could distribute a limited number, not 100. Maybe we do 20 or 25, just so that, we get additional participation, but we're not taking the risk of skewing our numbers dramatically.
I think it should be a sampling, like you're saying, because I do think 75 is really weighing heavily in one group. I'm not sure fill them out, but I would say a sampling seems like fair and balanced, maybe.
plus somebody on this committee is going to have to review them.
Right.
Type them in.
Well, this is the other thing. So Dave Womer, who's populating our survey information and going to put it into a report, he's not going to be able to enter this. Like he's not volunteering to do that. I'm trying to be aware of public comment time in the early stages of these meetings when it was brought to our attention that we should have somebody independent take the survey information and compile it, not someone on this committee. So I think we'd have to find a volunteer actually to enter in the paper copies and not one of us. Or I think we talked about this too. Sorry, my memory is failing me, but we also said perhaps we could enter it in and then just keep all of the paper copies, right? Somewhere, if they'd be available to the public. That probably would solve that problem.
Or we could distribute as many copies as you wanted to, and then randomly choose a subset if we got too many for us to deal with.
That's a good idea. Yeah. And then just hold them in some kind of a folder or some accessible place. Okay, and then, so maybe, so I think one of those solutions, either 20 of them, just randomly take 20 and enter them in. What about Mohegan Hills? I don't know who to contact. I don't know if we need to include them, if Doubleday is enough of a sampling. I don't want to create any inequity.
I mean, there is a contact for Mohegan Hills, but I don't know if you want to go and increase that sample.
I mean, I'm fine with taking a sample from Doubleday Woods and maybe taking a random 20 from whoever turns them in. And I just want everyone to tell me what they think about that.
Sounds good.
Okay. So is everyone's think pulling random 20 is good, or just asking for 20 to be filled out, or does it matter?
I think that
The random 20 works.
random 20.
Random 20.
Okay. So Joe, I know you can't hear me, but I have a stack of them here at my house. I'm happy to drop them off to you in a, like, I don't know what's the best way to get them to you. I can leave them at the police station. I don't know what seems easiest. So just let me know and I'll do whatever is the best to help you get them to you.
Lori, if you want to get them to me at the police station and I can get them to Joe.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Okay. Actually, I think that's it mostly. I just wanted to talk about, the survey. This is very helpful. And at the next meeting, if you have any additional input about the draft plan, that would be very helpful. If you can get into the document, great. I'm going to look at, Kelly had put some additional notes and before today's meeting, I haven't had a chance to look at yet. So I think it's coming along really nicely. And I feel like it's going in a good direction. I think it's pretty comprehensive, but it's ongoing. So feel free to offer input.
Thanks
I
for
did-
your work,
I
Lori.
did get a chance to go in over the weekend, and I was amazed at how far Lori's gotten with it. I mean, she's drafted many, many pages, and she's done really, really a heavy lift, and I'm very appreciative for that. I was expecting a skeleton, but you've really taken it much farther. So don't be afraid to go in and take a look.
Thank you. I mean, you know what, I just, once I sat down and really focused on it, I just wanted to have it kind of framed out so that it wasn't so overwhelming, because sometimes I think when you have a group and everyone's trying to create it all together, it can be really overwhelming and confusing. And so, and then the great thing is Susanna went in and added stuff, Kelly went in and added stuff. We talk about things. I try to take everybody's input and jot notes down when we talk so that no one is not, so everyone is represented for their contributions so that it really represents all of us. So,
Good job, Lori.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's it, everybody, for tonight. And we'll get together again in another week, or get almost 2 weeks really, but the survey results will come in. And that's the other thing. I'm going to reach out with Dave. I'll talk with him as soon as the survey comes in, or is closed, I should say. I'll get those, I'll drop off those surveys, actually the paper ones, tomorrow to the police department. So they're available for the next bunch of days. They'll have a bit of time. So just be aware, Joe, that they would have to be back. You might want to give everyone a deadline. Like we have to have them in by the 14th probably, or because the 15th is the deadline. I mean, they could do it that morning, but they could not be collected after that date.
That's Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll leave it at that. And then once Dave gets everything put together in some form of a document, I can share that with the group. And you would have that before the next meeting. So after that, we're really going to have to try to figure out, and he can help with this, obviously, because he's really savvy with this, I'm thinking, is how we present the overview of the data to the community. Okay.
Lori, I'm happy to key in those random 20 if you like. I can certainly take that on whenever it's ready. I can pick it up from Joe or Dave or whatever makes sense.
Okay. I mean, if you're willing, that's great. And you can always say, like, at that time, if it gets a little crazy, that you can only do 10 or whatever. So just, we'll take a pulse at the time when they come in.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Is there anything else before we jump off? Everybody okay?
Should we have public comment?
Yes, thank you.
Let me see. I think
Hey, Joe.
Joe is on the panelists. And we have Liz Cormos. Either one of you want to make a comment before the committee adjourns? Don't see any hands. The chief's talking to Joe on the phone right now. Last call, any public comment tonight? Okay. No public comment.
That was Joe on the line there. He said as soon as we get those, he could have those done in a day.
Awesome. Okay, good. I'll bring them tomorrow. I'll bring them down tomorrow. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night.
Bye.